So this morning we're going to be talking about how SnapStream can help K-12 organizations with distributing TV, morning announcements, and really any other type of video content to the classroom or various locations within your campuses. We'll talk a little bit about who SnapStream is, why it's important to use video for announcements, talk a little bit about TV within your curriculum, an overview of the product, as I mentioned, a live demo of the interface, and then discuss the details of doing a proof of concept, if that's something that you're interested in. So before we go any further though, just a very black and white question that I'm going to launch here. Do you have some type of IPTV solution currently? Great. And this is about what I would expect, to be honest with you. So it's about a 1/3, 2/3 split. And for those of you that do, we have found in evaluations that we typically come out ahead of some of the other competitors for a variety of reasons. And for those of you that don't, I'm not surprised by that, because that's why you're on the call as well. So back to our presentation here. Let's go ahead and talk about who we are as a company. We're a operation of about 30 employees based out of Houston, Texas, doing business across the country with all types of organizations, from small private schools to very large public school districts, some higher education entities, as well as a lot of entertainment and government clients as well. Now, in terms of announcements, schools are really shifting pretty briskly from a PA-based announcements to a video-based setup for a variety of reasons. When I was in school, there was no video-based anything. You were lucky if you had some carts collecting dust that got shared amongst the entire campus. Now, with technology having evolved, the PA announcements honestly can just be a bit stagnant. It's disconnecting from the audience, and it doesn't allow as much flexibility in terms of the content that you communicate and involvement from the student base. As well as building, real-world professional skills in terms of what it takes to create a broadcast production. And SnapStream comes into play from the standpoint that we are the distribution vehicle for getting that content from wherever it's originating, whether it might be in the hallway, or a static studio, or out, on the ball field, or what have you, to the end users in the classroom for consumption. So why TV in the classroom as well? TV is not just used for entertainment purposes, but it brings the real world to the school curriculum and really allows you to take multiple angles to your approach of educating students. So there's a lot of relevant video content on, just to name a few channels: Discovery, National Geographic, the History Channel. Obviously, there's a lot of different world culture and media studies type of content, and just topical current events that could be incorporated in some capacity into a teacher's curriculum. And then lastly, you see there foreign language. So you can take a lot of programming and really bring it into the classroom and connect the dots between becoming proficient in a language and bringing in that media content and sort of accelerating the knowledge and the growth of that language. So regarding our second poll question here, I do want to ask, for those of you that are kind of looking at the morning announcements piece of it amongst everything else, how are you currently doing morning announcements? We've got a few different options up here. Everything from coax to YouTube, like I said, an IPTV solution. Just trying to get a feel for what you're doing currently. And for those of you that are doing something currently, perhaps you can just maybe not ask a question, but even chime in the questions section and explain a little bit about what the pain points are, I guess, of the way you're doing morning announcements currently. So there's about half of you that are doing something currently, and to be curious to know how effective it is and what you'd be looking to do better, I guess. Now, jumping back to just the overall concept of IPTV, because there was a question that came in about what is IPTV, and that's a great question. So IPTV in general doesn't just, in the context of this webinar, it doesn't just refer to TV, but it's really about distributing video content over your local network. So instead of using cable drops and instead of having to have like physical infrastructure behind the walls and using physical TV devices to pull up content, and this will be clearer when I actually go into the product more. But in a nutshell, it's about distributing content over your local network. And what that does is make it very efficient from a scalability standpoint to get that content out to a large amount of locations with very limited network bandwidth implications. So in a sense, yes, it's a streaming solution, but it is contained within your local network. It's related to your internal organization specifically. It's not streaming outbound to outside users. We'll come back to that in a few moments just to make sure there's clarity there. So let's talk a little bit about how SnapStream works at a high level. On this slide, you see that there is a variety of different content. It can be everything from traditional broadcast TV on some of the channels that I mentioned. It could be morning announcements from a video camera. It could be a DVD player. It could be on-demand content that you've uploaded into a SnapStream Edu appliance. Now that little animated guy that you see there is a physical server appliance that resides in your local environment and is connected to the LAN and distributes content out to different campuses, or it could reside at one specific campus and just be streaming content within one particular school. But it is scalable to any number of different locations over the network. This is one of the most important slides, actually, even though it sounds very basic in nature. It's easy to use. When we get pitted against, option B and C, people go with SnapStream option A because it's easy to use and it simply works. There is so much technology that's getting thrown around in school systems these days, and if it's not intuitive and if it's not clean, it will not get used. And it's not a good use of everybody's time, and it's not a good resource for school systems. So as you can see here, and as you will see very clearly in a moment, our system is easy to use and it simply works, and there's not a large learning curve at all for teachers and or students to access the system and accomplish what they're looking to do. I do see some great questions coming in, and I'm going to get to those again in a moment. So just know that I am seeing those questions. Now, in terms of content, whether it is TV-based or internal content, it can be done both live and recorded. When we talk about morning announcements, for example, it might not be conducive for everybody to tune in at 8:30 on a daily basis and see those. Maybe it is, but there also might be people that want to be able to see that after the fact. Likewise, there might be current events or some type of programming that you would like to play back in your classroom after it airs, and SnapStream can help you accomplish both of those things, both live as well as on demand. You also notice on this screen that we've got several different icons, and that's intended to illustrate that our platform can be used across any type of device, everything from a Chromebook to a PC, and any type of browser, everything from Safari to Internet Explorer. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to that, and every K-12 organization tends to have some varying type of devices and browsers that they have a preference for, so not to worry on that front. You can also very easily clip and share content. So you can create clips from the library section of the interface. And as I mentioned, I'm just kind of going through this stuff at a bit of a high level, but we'll crystallize it in the interface here. So you can easily grab small segments of content, incorporate them into various learning platforms so that you're making the most efficient use of instructional time. Regarding morning announcements, this ties into the slide from just a moment ago about ease of use. So it really is as simple as turning on your camera. If recording is of interest to you, you choose to record it, and you can also watch that content live. It's a 1, 2, 3 step process. The additional pillar that I glazed over at the beginning is uploading video files as well. So whether it's morning announcements, whether it is professional development, whether it is a concert that students performed from the night before, or a combination of all the above, you can use this as a digital repository. So you can upload content into the system and segment it into particular file folders for on-demand playback, and you're easily able to control who can access what with the administrative rights. I wanted to mention briefly that we also have an accessory to SnapStream, which is a set-top box. That set-top box allows you to expand out the SnapStream footprint in your organization. It connects via HDMI to the back of a TV display, and you can watch live or recorded content on displays, typically in common areas of your sites. So I think we've come to the end of our slides here, and I want to go ahead and jump over into the SnapStream Edu interface. Now we're going to be looking at a demo system that is working off of a server in our office, but it is very closely mirrors what you would have in your own environment. So the first thing that I want to draw attention to is I'm not going out to the internet anywhere. This is access where I'm pointing towards the local server appliance. I'm opening a browser. In my particular case, I am accessing it through Chrome, and I'm going to something called Snap Edu, just like your users would be going to whatever the custom server name is given for your platform. I then come into a guide, much like you would see at your own residence, and this is a guide that can be as limited or robust as you want. So in this particular case, I've got, I believe, 9 channels here. 8 of them are broadcast TV content, and the last one is my internal feed. This is Brian's morning announcements. From this view, you can watch content live, and you can also record anything that you want to if you are given rights to do so by an administrator. The red icons that you see listed indicate that things are being recorded, and in this particular case, I'm recording almost everything across the board 24/7. If I come up here and right-click into one of my boxes, you see the options that I'm given. So I can watch something live. I can record things episodically. I can record everything on this channel, whatever my preference is. There's a great question here about how many channels can be encoded and streamed at one time. That's actually a limitation not of SnapStream, but that would be based off of the number of sources that you have. And that brings up a good point. Let me actually go to the website real quick, because I do think this is a good illustration that it would be relevant to mention here. So if you see this illustration real quickly, it indicates or is intended to illustrate that it's a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of sources related to the number of streams that you're sending out over your network. So in the case of this camera feed right here, that can produce 1 channel of internal content. These 4 set-top boxes, each of them is statically configured and assigned to one particular channel. Now, those can be controlled at an administrative level, but it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So the answer to your question is the limitation is a byproduct of the number of sources you have and not any sort of limitation of SnapStream. It could be 5, 10, 20, etc. So back to the guide here, I'm going to go ahead and jump into live programming. And I'm now watching live content on my device. And this is actually a multicast stream that is playing back through VLC Player. Likewise, I can jump in and watch a live stream of my internal content, and this happens to be a camera feed that is in our conference room, and this is a very bad view right now because we have less than ideal weather today, but normally you would be seeing a downtown view of the Houston skyline. So imagine that this is a camera in your environment and you've got a student or a principal or some other faculty member that's speaking into it. It works just the same as any other type of input. So in this guide, each of these channels that you see listed, it is let me backtrack. There is a tuner that is responsible for each of these channels. So yes, it's a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of the sources and tuners. So when it comes to the encoding piece, we have a 1-channel encoder and we also have a 4-channel encoder. Those can be clustered together in any sort of fashion to create the guide that you're looking at right now. So in the case of the system I'm operating this demo off of, I have 8 TV sources feeding into 2 4-channel encoders, and I have a 1-channel encoder that is taking my camera feed into it, and that is all rolling up into one seamless interface. Anything that's recorded in this guide will live over in the library section. This library is being built from scratch, so it's populating in one of 2 ways. It is either being recorded from the guide and then imported into the library, or I'm uploading a file into the system. So I'm grabbing whatever file I select. I can then allocate it to a particular file folder. So I can say that I want to take, this file about reptiles, and I want to drop it into Mr. Jones's folder. And then I've got that content stored there, or I could also put it into an elementary school mathematics folder, or I could create a folder for an entire campus, and I can segment it however I want to. And then those destinations are located over here and can be accessed as I see fit. The library section is obviously recorded on-demand content. All of it is living on the SnapStream server, and that server comes with a scalable amount of storage suit to fit your needs. So it could be anywhere between 1 and 24 terabytes of storage, and the content by default lives on the system until your storage hits max capacity. You can always choose to protect content. If you don't manually protect something, the oldest content gets deleted first, but you can set up workflows, which I will show in a second, in order to offload stuff into a different storage platform outside of the SnapStream ecosystem. Now, another powerful tool that I want to point out is if I come into this program right here, this is a recorded program, and you can actually see that I've got video content on the left-hand side, and I have closed captioning over here on the right-hand side. This is something that's very unique to SnapStream Edu. And frankly, it's proprietary feature set that you will not find with any other products out there. This can be disabled, but I do just want to explain the power of this feature real briefly. So as long as I am recording content from my guide and it's being archived and dropped into my library, broadcast content that is, it all has associated closed captioning, which is a requirement by the FCC. And we can then make that closed captioning indexed and searchable, very similar to doing a Google search. So think of SnapStream to a degree from this for this feature set, it's a DVR, an enterprise DVR combined with Google search to allow you to get needle in the haystack mentions of anything that you're looking for. So a quick verbal example, and then I'm going to show you a real world example. Let's say that there is a current event that airs at 6 p.m. at night, and obviously school is not taking place then, and a teacher wants to grab something, a 60-second clip from that program and incorporate it into their classroom instruction, they could very easily do so with the way SnapStream is set up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a search for Mr. Lincoln. And it actually returns me results related specifically to what I'm looking for. So I just did an indexed search within my entire library, and it gives me content from yesterday, and I have the ability to use my scrubbing tools to clip this particular segment So I've created a start and end point, and I've extracted out a 53-second clip, and I can tag it. Put it into a particular file folder that I want to. I can also share it out. If I have email addresses of students, I can share that out to any of my students or parents, for that matter, if I want to, or administrators, what have you. And I can create a duration length at which I want to make that available. Same thing goes for, I can extend out that search process to in an automated manner. So I can make alerts set up for either individual use or across the entire district, what have you. I can create any number of terms using a sophisticated set of Boolean terminology that allows me to get the granular results that I'm looking for. And I can say, I can set up like, 3 different terms that I want to look for on a daily basis and say every day when I come in to my office, I want to have an email in my inbox at 8 a.m., which tells me anything related to those topics that I'm looking for. So back to the library for a second. There is one way, or there's a couple of ways, but there's a primary way in which you can share stuff outside the system if you choose to, though I do emphasize that about 95% of what I'm going over here, it is intentionally meant to be contained to your local network. Which is typically advantageous for administrators and IT folks because you are not sending anybody to the internet to access anything related to SnapStream. But if you choose to make it available to the external world, you can take content that resides in SnapStream and you can actually post it to a YouTube channel. It does need to be recorded, and it is a one-way street. So that means that you can take content from SnapStream and you can post it out to a YouTube channel, which you authenticate over here under external channels. And I can make that available for outside users to see. I cannot directly take content from YouTube or any other outside location and import it to SnapStream, but you could definitely download it to your workstation and then upload it into the SnapStream library as we looked at over here. Yes, you can absolutely post to multiple YouTube channels. You just have to use the external accounts to authenticate any outside locations that you want to post things out to. And then obviously keeping in mind that you're sending it to the place that you want it to go to and not to somebody else's page. Under the admin section, this is where the security configuration resides as well. So we have integration with LDAP and Active Directory, and you can map over any user credentials that you want to. So it's very seamless for login access to have users familiar with accessing the system as they do other platforms. Now, the great benefit behind that is that I can put different users into different groups, or they may already be configured into various groups based off of other things that are done in the organization today. And then those different users and groups are related to different permission settings. So in my permission settings section up here under administrators, you see that pretty much I've comprehensively said that my administrators group can do anything that they want to in this system. But maybe I don't want that to be the case. Maybe I don't want them to be able to like download a file or something. So I'm just going to disable anything that I don't want done. Likewise, if I've created a group called live TV viewers, like I did, intuitively speaking, then I'm probably going to disable a lot of the functionality because all I want them to do is be able to watch content live, not schedule recordings, not push stuff out to YouTube, not delete things, not clip things, not anything. And to give you a scaled down visual of what that looks like, I'm going to sign in as my alter ego, which is a lower level user at my hypothetical school. And now you don't see the admin section. You simply see a guide and a library. And for that matter, I could even scale it back further to where all that this person sees is the guide. And when they go into the guide, all that they can do is watch something. They can't record or any of the other before mentioned functionality. The permission settings and folders is also the way that you can customize guide lineups. So if you have multiple campus sites that are producing their own content and you do not want elementary school 2 to overlap content with high school number 3, then you can make sure you can create different lineups so that based off of login credentials, they're only seeing things that are related, relevant content for that subgroup. Likewise, when you're setting up folders, you can also dictate who's able to see content in specific folders. All of this is to say that SnapStream is very customizable to your needs, and we've typically taken many things into consideration of educational entities as well as others to ensure that you can segment and provide access where needed or take away access where it's not needed. So this is a pretty high level overview of the platform. As I mentioned, I've gone over things pretty much from top left to bottom right, if you will, of the interface. But you know, not every customer, in fact, very few customers use the product in its entirety for everything that I've covered, and maybe a few things that I haven't. So you can pick and choose what is relevant and important to your organization. You can disable things that are not, and we'd be happy to work work with you through that process. Now, I do want to post up a few other poll questions here. And the first of which is, now that you've had a chance to kind of go through the PowerPoint presentation and see the ins and outs of the platform, how do you see yourself using SnapStream? So once again, what features are important to you? How do you see this being implemented in your organization? And it looks to be a pretty even split here between TV and announcements, as well as just internal content and morning announcements. Next question is pretty straightforward, like some of the earlier ones were. Would you be interested in doing a proof of concept? This is related to one of the handouts that should be accessible for you in the panel. Let me explain quickly what a proof of concept entails. It is a free proof of concept, typically for about 30 days, that allows you to do a test drive of the product in your environment. It allows us to confirm with you that everything is synced up and works properly. And it allows you to basically get your hands dirty with SnapStream and confirm all the functionality that I've gone over and see it in person with your end users, with your administrators, etc. So we will send out the hardware. We will work with the tech personnel to get everything up and running. Allow you to test it out, get the sources configured that you think would give you the most comprehensive evaluation, etc. And my last question here before I answer some additional Q&A and wrap up the webinar today is, what is your time frame for purchasing something like SnapStream? Just helps to give me an understanding of the landscape, and you know, transparency is always good. There's a couple more questions here. One is about getting live announcements into SnapStream. And so let me go back to the visual that I had up earlier. And the seamless way to get live content into SnapStream is with an encoder, some sort of encoder. So as you see down there in that beige box labeled individual campus, you would take a camera feed into a single channel encoder. That single channel encoder feeds back through your central server appliance, and then that stream gets distributed out over the network. So any content that is live feeds through, gets ingested through an encoder as the initial step leading to distribution through the SnapStream portal. As far as, so I mentioned earlier on the during the slide deck that SnapStream is the distribution mechanism for your overall platform for distributing content. Therefore, we don't do the comprehensive deployment of everything from how you're shooting the content to the other types of hardware that you would need in terms of cameras and mixing devices and things like that. What I will say is, we can recommend, or not recommend, but I can simply suggest a few things that we've seen some of our customers use in terms of what they're actually filming their productions with. But really, any type of camera with an HDMI output would be fine. You can find cameras everywhere from, say, like $500 to several $1,000s. And a lot of it really just depends on, how robust of a production you're looking to go for. There is a product called a TriCaster that does come up very often in EDU environments. It's more of a comprehensive all-in-one solution for the whole production suite. So I think it gives you multiple camera angles. It gives you a whole editing suite of technology. You're welcome to take a look at that. It's not, we don't have a financial interest in it. I will say that. We don't have a financial interest in any particular make and model of a camera. There are some very high level basic things. Like I said, if it has an HDMI output, it will most likely be just fine. Depending on whether you want something that's HD quality or SD, there's a variety of different factors, and obviously, you get what you pay for in terms of longevity of this various equipment. Regarding how you actually access the content, so the students go to this platform that I was demoing off of. So they open a browser on their device and they go to the name of the server. And depending on whether it's live or recorded, they either come into the guide or they go into the library. The guide, they would watch content live. The library, they would be viewing content on demand. But it's simply going to the name of the server once you open your browser. So it's a customized location. We could put together documentation that helps provide a step-by-step explanation of all this. In fact, we have some very good resources that we've already, utilized for many of our K-12 customers in terms of how to most effectively access the system. Yes, there's a question about an iPad. It could potentially. I would advise against an iPad. I would personally recommend a traditional camera. Now, in terms of devices for consumption, this gets into a little bit more of a technical explanation, but if you are using a Mac or Windows PC, if you have a hardwired computer, there's not really an issue one way or another in terms of what type of device it is. If you start incorporating wireless content, then that's another discussion. It still works, but it's the difference between accessing a unicast stream and a multicast stream. Are there any other questions that I can answer? Great. Well, I will be following up with you. I really appreciate your attendance this morning and look forward to working with many of you in the weeks and months ahead. And glad you were able to get a better grasp on how SnapStream works in the K-12 segment. Have a great rest of your day.